All right, welcome to part 2, social influences. Still part of social thinking, but I separated it out. Okay, so I'm just going to go through your slides, and instead of reading them to you because I'm getting bored of that, I'm going to give you an assignment for each concept, and it might be little, it might be big, but something I want you to do with your notes, and then something you can do throughout break. All right, so in your book, pages 730 to 742, talks about social influence. Again, read through this. Act like college. Instead of just going off the lectures, look at your book for examples and add to it. Again, I want you to be doing this with someone else. It's much more powerful when you're learning with someone else. So here are the things that you'll have emphasis in these notes that you should definitely walk away. You need to know what conformity is, what suggestibility is, along with the chameleon effect. You need to know all the conditions that strengthen conformity, make people more likely to conform. What obedience is, we've already talked about Milgram, but I'll talk about that in a second. What group influence and group interactions, and then the power of individual. So those are kind of like your big heading things for these lectures. Okay, so again, instead of reading through here, I'm going to go through each slides and tell you what I want you to do. So going back to social thinking, I'll add one more here. Cognitive dissonance theory is something that's tested on a lot. All right, so you need to know exactly what it is, which is really that discomfort when our actions don't match our attitudes, right? So that you talk a bunch of, I don't know, crap about something or someone, and then you go against that, right? So I hate parties. They're so stupid. Like, I can't believe that people go to parties and blah, 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 blah. And then Saturday night you go to a party and you dance and you have the time of your life, right? And then so you have that dissonance between the two where your actions are inconsistent with your attitudes, and what do you do to resolve that? So what I'd like you guys to do for cognitive dissonance is go through this example and this example and come up with your own. So both of these are examples of your actions not matching your attitudes, and then the resolutions of them. Come up with your own example and put that in your notes. Okay, let's look at conformity. What I'd like you to do with conformity is look at the chameleon effect here and then see if you can implement it somehow during Thanksgiving break. Maybe while everyone's at dinner, maybe while everyone's at talking, but really this can be your tone of voice, something that you do, or like even your posture, and seeing if they'll mimic it. Okay, here's some charts on the chameleon effect. It's looking at participants rubbing their face and shaking their foot, and how many times each person did that. So talk about that and the replication, so or how they went along with each other. Conformity, then we already talked about Milgram, but you also need to know Ash's conformity with the line, or the length of the line. And let me go to that really quick, but you really need to know how people influences other people's actions, or their willingness to go with the group. So the influence resulting from a person's desire to gain approval to avoid disapproval. This is why people go along with the group. But you need to read about in your book the Ash's conformity experiment, and you need to, no, hold on, I'm getting text messages from people. I don't know, I just left off. So in Ash's conformity experiment, they're looking at the length of the line. A lot of you guys did this at the beginning of the year with a group with math, so asking them long math questions and then the answer, and looking at that people are more likely to go along with that, with that answer. Okay, so for Ash's conformity or social influence, again, I want you to just read through your book and make sure you know the things that affect conformity, and what exactly happened in his experiment. All right, in Milgram's experiment, we talked about this a lot already, but some things that you need to know that are different from what we already looked at was what exactly was Milgram was testing, right? So what he was measuring, his dependent variable, and then what I'd like you to do for this Milgram study is to actually just explain this study to someone in your family. Okay, so explain what they were doing and what happened and why people were so likely to be obedient to the doctor. Okay, make sure you know all the graphs and all these things that go along with it, but make sure that you're able to explain it to someone who does not know anything about obedience. Okay, so social influence, so the people that resist coercion. You need to know all these different types of social influences for facilitation and loafing, And I want you to, for these ones, come up with examples of what might be an example of social facilitation and what would be an example of social loafing. De-individuation, come up with an example for it. Group polarization, come up with an example for it. Groupthink is an interesting one, and there's a long slide on the warnings of groupthink. Really, for groupthink, I just need you guys to know these things, but as in a group, come up with some rules that you might use when people come together as a group to avoid groupthink. Okay, so you might want to look at these preventative strategies down here. Social influences, looking at group ins, groups out. And then the power of individuals, the self-fulfilling prophecy, and the minority influences. Again, just coming up with some examples of these. So I know I asked you guys to do an experiment or do something that goes along with the notes, but as I looked more at that, I thought it would be a little difficult to come up with an experiment for one thing, and then you would be really getting rid of all those other really important things. So I guess what I'm asking you guys to do is do a pretty in-depth tutorial on these notes and make sure you understand them and coming up with examples of them. You can either do that on a separate piece of paper, or you can just attach them to your notes and go through. I should have the quiz up by Thursday to practice, but you can email me with any questions, and then let me give you one more slide of a reminder of everything you need to do. All right, here's your summary slide with your assignments. Okay, so again, examples of lots of that stuff. The first one that I asked you to do was the cognitive dissonance. Come up with your own example for that. I want you to try out the chameleon effect. What did you do, and did it work? I want you to explain Milgrams' experiment to someone else so that they understand. I want you to come up with examples of all those vocab words: social facilitation, social loafing, de-individuation, group polarization, and then come up with rules to avoid groupthink. All right, so those are your assignments for the second part of notes. I'll talk to you later.